Well, back home now, and the federal government is preparing to roll out COVID-19 vaccines next month with a goal to have 4 million people vaccinated by March. But it has a huge logistical task on its hands. The vaccines need to be stored at specific temperatures, sometimes as low as -70 degrees, and transported right around the country. For more on this, I'm joined by Associate Professor of Logistics and Supply Chain Management at RMIT, Victor Gekara. Victor, appreciate your time and your expert opinion. What will be the biggest logistical challenge facing the government when it comes to rolling out the vaccine here?
Thanks for having me. That's a very good question. I think the first thing that we have to consider is that this is perhaps the largest, it's actually the largest vaccination program that has been undertaken in Australian history. So that then sets the stage for analyzing the logistical challenges that are involved. The two sets of challenges relate to transportation and storage. And as you've said, these vaccines require various temperature conditions. So the Pfizer vaccine requires up to -70 degrees, and the AstraZeneca, which is much easier to handle, I suppose, requires only up to 4 degrees. So it's a matter of putting in place measures to ensure that there is cold storage and cold transportation effectively. But there are also other side contributing factors and measures that have to be put in place. The mass training of those who handle these vaccines during the transportation and the storage, that's an important part of it, and also obviously training for community awareness to enable and assist the logistical efficiencies that are involved.
Most of the vaccines that we're seeing being developed need 2 doses. They need to be administered around 3 weeks apart. What needs to actually happen? What needs to be put in place to make sure that people get those 2 doses? And when it comes to those distribution centres, how important is it to make sure that they are close by to the places where the vaccines are being rolled out?
It's absolutely essential that we've got distribution centres that are located very close to the end distribution and administration centres or locations. And this is because considering the landscape, the geographical landscape we're dealing with here, particularly in remote regional areas, the time that it takes to transport the vaccines from a central hub like Melbourne or Sydney or Perth to the farthest remote areas is significant, and therefore initially the setup should be a hub in the central location like Perth, and a regional distribution center in a place like Broken Hill, and of course then you've got the distribution channels close to that center, effectively distributing in the last mile. To your question about the 2 doses, I think the measures that need to be put in place to ensure effective distribution of the 2 doses would include, as I said earlier on, there is the training of the staff that establish the registers and effective monitoring of who has received in the first round or the first dose, and then following up to the second dose. But also, obviously, there is also the challenge of making sure that there is sufficient distribution, considering the conditions that are required for transportation and storage of these vaccines. But finally, there is the important point of awareness, community awareness, because the people themselves have to be aware that they have to receive the next dose for the entire vaccination process to be effective.
Victor, if it's going to be such a logistical nightmare here in Australia, how do you envisage the rollout occurring in third world countries, which I assume will be facing much tougher logistical issues than we do here?
You are absolutely right. And lessons have been learned over the years in the 80s in places like Fiji, Kiribati, and Vanuatu, in the challenges that you're referring to, the challenges of logistics, the challenges of distribution, and the challenges of creating sufficient awareness, the challenges of creating and developing the skills among the people that distribute and ultimately administer. These are the challenges that we anticipate to have in developing countries. We've got countries that whose cold chain facilities and infrastructure are very poor. Those need to be addressed. These countries also are characterized by geographical remoteness. There are areas in those countries that would be very difficult to reach. These are the challenges that obviously have to be addressed. Now, to compound that situation, obviously, is the fact that this program needs to be rolled out within a very short period of time because, obviously, of the unprecedented nature of it and the need to make sure that a large majority of the world population is vaccinated. So again, if we talk about remoteness and infrastructure and the challenges in Australia, you can be sure to multiply that by 10 in some of the developing countries and even more.
Yeah, tough year ahead for many of those countries in particular. Victor Gekara, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.